following is a Galactic Digital Studios production. This is Sports Central, part of the Closing Tag Network. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the Utah Coyotes. Okay. This is Sports Central, part of the Closing Tag Network, and things have changed up a little bit around here. Obviously, some things more than others. So, I wanted to start this new format of our Closing Tag podcasts with kind of an interesting story that's been developing rather quickly over the last 2 weeks. I'm going to kind of give some backstory on this first, and then I'll go into the article that ESPN released just a little while ago. So, one of the big stories throughout the NHL this past year has been what's going on with the Arizona Coyotes. What's going on with ownership, what's going on with management, what's going on with the stadium. There's been a lot of confusion throughout this entire process on where exactly a new stadium would be built, assuming one actually got approved by the state of Arizona. Well, unfortunately for the people in Arizona, there's been too much confusion. People are running around like decapitated chickens, way too much for the NHL's liking, and the ownership group in the NHL have basically said, okay, enough's enough. You've got to come to a decision now. You've got to come to a decision on where exactly the new stadium is going to be built. Otherwise, you're going to have to relocate. You're going to have to move the team. And city officials and state officials couldn't really come to a consensus. So that, coupled with the fact that the current stadium just is not up to stuff as far as the NHL is concerned, led to what I'm about to read from ESPN.com. Arizona Coyotes players were informed Friday, April 12th, that the team is relocating to Salt Lake City, Utah. Sources told ESPN, confirming a report by Phoenix Sports. Coyotes general manager Bill Armstrong met with the team ahead of their game against the Edmonton Oilers to confirm what had already been rumored all week, that the NHL has facilitated the sale of the Arizona Coyotes to the Smith Entertainment Group, headed by Ryan and Ashley Smith, who are, of course, the owners of the Utah Jazz. The Coyotes will begin playing there next season. Now, kind of breaking from the article here, the news media here in Utah has basically been, running roughshod throughout the last several months regarding bringing in other sports aside from just the NBA and Major League Soccer. Of course, if you recall, the Smith Entertainment Group, headed by Ryan Smith, has been hard at work trying to convince not just the NHL, but also Major League Baseball to come to Salt Lake City. The big hurdle regarding both is that there's just not a sufficient enough stadium. We have a minor league baseball park in downtown Salt Lake City, but that's the key. It's minor league baseball, coupled with the fact that this is a very small market. It just wasn't enough to convince the Oakland Athletics ownership group to temporarily move the team to Salt Lake City, instead opting for West Sacramento while they wait for a new stadium in Las Vegas to be built. Arizona Coyotes, on the other hand, that's an entirely different ballpark. Remember what I just mentioned in the ESPN article, that this is a sale. The team has been sold to Ryan Smith. Smith owns the Coyotes now. I mean, I'm sure there's I's to be dotted and T's to be crossed and legal documents that need to be thumbed through, pages and pages and pages of them. But the general consensus is that this is happening right now. This is not a drill. This is not, pie in the sky. Oh my gosh, what would happen if we did this? No, nothing like that. This is happening. Smith already has government support. A bill passed in the Utah State Senate to help fund a renovated entertainment district downtown in anticipation of an NHL franchise. The bill already has approval from Utah Governor Spencer Cox. So, there you go. It's happening. Coyotes players and staff members will be invited to visit Salt Lake City after their season finale to check out the city and facilities. Spoiler alert, you are probably going to want to bring your own beer. Just saying. The plan is for the team to play at the Delta Center temporarily, which is owned by the Smith Entertainment Group and is also home to the Utah Jazz. However, sources told ESPN that the NHL has made it perfectly clear to the Smiths that a hockey-specific upgrade is needed at the Delta Center in order to become the team's permanent home. Coyotes owner Alex Marullo, I have no idea if I'm butchering that or not, has been on a years-long quest to find a permanent home for the Coyotes, who have been temporarily playing their home games at Arizona State's Mullet Arena. Alex, I'm not even going to try pronouncing his last name, has eyed a plot in the Phoenix area and intends to win a state-run land auction for it on June 27th. However, according to sources, the NHL grew skeptical of the timeline and decided they needed a better solution now. The NHL is interested in returning to Arizona in the future, leaving the door open to Alex to own the team. As my cat is constantly criticizing. Hi. So, a few things. Let me start before I say anything else. And let me switch over to dark mode because that's just way too bright for me. There we go. Let me just say, for starters, as a full disclaimer, I have no horse in this race. None. I may live in Utah currently, but that does not mean that I have any vested interest in seeing any more professional sports come here. Period. We have a hard enough time supporting the Jazz at this point. I mean, it's like the family that has one kid that they have a hard enough time paying all their attention to, and now the wife is saying, hey, I have a brilliant idea. Let's get a second kid. At this point, Utah's on kid number 3, if we're being honest, because of Real Salt Lake and the Utah Jazz. But all of that being said, I have no race in this horse. I'm not even a fan of professional hockey. Like, I admire and respect the athleticism and the toughness and the grittiness of hockey players that are able to play at that level that effectively. So with that said, here are my thoughts. This sucks for Arizona, obviously. This reminds me a lot of how things went down with the Cleveland Browns back in, I think it was like 1995, when they decided, you know what, this town isn't good enough anymore for the Browns, we're going to move to Baltimore. You know, kind of basing off more recent example, the Seattle Supersonics, when ownership decided to move the team to Oklahoma City. Now they're called the Thunder. You know, we can also pull up examples of the Raiders moving to Las Vegas, the Oakland Athletics moving to Las Vegas but taking the scenic route going through Sacramento. You know, sports teams and owners are very finicky as far as, you know, arenas and whatnot. Keep in mind that most arenas nowadays, most new arenas, brand new arenas, cost anywhere upwards of over $1 billion. That's billion with a B. Right, exactly. So, trying to get public funding for $1 billion is insanely difficult, as the owners of the Kansas City Chiefs are, you know, finding out very quickly. And there's a lot of, you know, turmoil going on with the Chiefs in Arrowhead Stadium right now. It's the wildest thing ever, considering the fact that we're in the middle of what could very well be one of the greatest dynasties in NFL history, and there's legitimate talk that they may end up moving. Yeah, exactly. So, you know, obviously this sucks for Coyotes fans because of the fact that, you know, they invested a lot of their time, their money, and their energy to supporting a team that is no longer going to be there after next season. After this season, they're basically gone. I mean, from the sounds of it, they practically have their bags packed already. So this sucks for Coyotes fans. This sucks for the state of Arizona. I mean, I'm sure it's great for Utah. I'm sure it's great for, you know, Ryan Smith to be able to say, I now own 2 professional sports franchises. Here's my thought on, you know, how the whole ownership group thing is configured. We already know, based off rants that I've done on the Legacy Closing Tag podcast in the past, who all is on the ownership group for the Jazz. The guy from Atlassian, I forget the other guy's name. Ryan Smith, obviously. Dwayne Wade. Yes, that Dwayne Wade. J.J. Watt has, like, a minor ownership in the Jazz. Like, I'd say, like, probably not even 1%. But he has stock. He has ownership stock in the Jazz. Are all of those guys going to be involved with the Coyotes as well? Because that's going to be wild. And it's also going to be wild because we know the relationship between Ryan Smith and Dwayne Wade and how that kind of led to Wade becoming part owner of the Jazz. Are there any former or current NHL players that could potentially be involved in the ownership of the Arizona Coyotes? Well, okay, Utah Coyotes. Is there anything involving, you know, that might, you know, kind of sweeten the pot a little bit? We already know, based off what I read just a minute ago, that the state of Utah is approving funding for an entertainment district. Now, this part of this district, from what I understand, involves not only a new arena for the Coyotes, but also a new arena for the Jazz, because the Delta Center, as great as it is, and as great as, a home court advantage that the Delta Center provides for the Jazz, or at least has provided for the Jazz in years past, it's getting old. There are some people listening to this podcast right now that are younger than the Delta Center. Delta Center broke ground in 1990. I wasn't even in middle school by that point. So, that's how long it's been. That's how long the Delta Center's been around. So, there is a lot of talk that they're going to replace the Delta Center with a new arena for the Jazz. Obviously, they're going to want to keep the acoustics and keep some of the stuff that makes, crowd noise level extremely high. There's also talk of maybe replacing the Megaplex, which is a local movie theater that's located just across the street from the Delta Center. There's talk of replacing that. There's talk of, like I said, a new arena for the Coyotes. There's talk of residential and commercial buildings that are going to be in that region. There's a lot going into this, and it is insane that, Ryan Smith basically pushed all of his chips into the middle of the table with the NHL and said, we're all in. We want to bring the Coyotes here. Let's make it happen. Could you imagine had they failed? Could you imagine if 2 days ago, hiccups. Could you imagine if 2 days ago the NHL and the state of Arizona and Phoenix and Alex, whose name I can't pronounce, all came to a consensus and said, look, we want to keep the Coyotes in Arizona. We want to keep the NHL in Arizona. Let's come to a decision today, and let's get the new arena ready to go within the next 2 or 3 years. So by, let's say, 2027. Could you imagine if that had happened and Ryan Smith was like, oh, crap. Well, that sucked. There's a lot of moving parts going into this, and there's a lot of things that are probably going to be addressed both short-term and long-term regarding the Coyotes, regarding the Delta Center, regarding downtown Salt Lake City. Yes, it's an exciting time for people in Salt Lake. Granted, there's going to be a lot of construction in downtown, and downtown driving is going to be next to impossible now. But it's an exciting time. But like I said, it's going to suck for the state of Arizona. But from the sounds of it, it sounds like the NHL is willing to talk with Arizona and talk with Alex Marulo, or however you pronounce his name, and probably bring the NHL back to Arizona at some point. It's probably going to take 10, 12, 15 years. But I think once Arizona finally comes to an agreement on a new arena, they'll probably decide, okay, yeah, let's go ahead and do this thing. Keep in mind, the Coyotes aren't the only team that's having arena problems right now in the state of Arizona. The Diamondbacks, the Arizona Diamondbacks, are having issues trying to fund a new stadium, because their stadium is probably just as old, if not older, than the Delta Center. They also have the basketball arena, whatever ridiculous name is it's being given these days, the home for the Phoenix Suns. Granted, the Suns just barely got a new owner, and the new owner at least seems a lot more willing to work with Arizona legislators than Robert Salver did. So, Suns fans probably don't have anything to worry about other than, okay, where's the new arena going to be? It'll probably be in like downtown Phoenix or just outside Glendale or something like that. I don't know. But yeah, this is not a good look for Arizona. It's not a good look. I mean, most team markets that are losing teams left and right or have arena problems are really walking on eggshells right now and feeling like they are teetering very close to complete collapse. Bear in mind, yes, a lot of money from the public is pumped into these teams and into these new arenas, but in turn, those new arenas and those professional sports teams generate a lot of tourist revenue and a lot of revenue locally for those towns. The reason Las Vegas is going all in and all hard on bringing every professional sport under the sun to Las Vegas is because it generates a lot of revenue. And it's generating, surprisingly enough, almost as much revenue, if not more, than the casinos. The new arena for the Golden Knights generated over $30 million during their run towards the Stanley Cup. Allegiant Stadium is generating a lot of revenue for the town of Las Vegas, not just because of the Raiders, but it is also bringing in a lot of other acts and a lot of other things that are going on. There's a lot of talk right now. I don't mean to cross the streams, but there's a lot of talk right now that Las Vegas is the front runner, if not in the top 2 or 3. If not the front runner, it's in the top 2 or 3 consideration towns to host next year's WrestleMania. So it's bringing in a lot of revenue because it's bringing in people from all over the world to come to Las Vegas, not just to gamble, but to watch all of these events. It's one of the reasons why Las Vegas built that monstrosity of a sphere, as my cat is just going absolutely crazy right now. I don't think he likes me doing podcasts. Just a hunch. Just a hunch. But there's a lot of different moving parts that are going on. It sucks for towns like Oakland and Phoenix that are losing teams. It's great for towns like Salt Lake City and Las Vegas. I mean, Las Vegas is practically almost guaranteed an NBA expansion franchise within the next 2 years. Granted, they'll have to play at T-Mobile Arena for a little while, but Las Vegas, from all the talk that's been going on in the NBA the last several months, it is practically a lock. As soon as the TV rights deals are signed, it's practically a lock for Adam Silver to announce that Seattle and Las Vegas are getting expansion franchises. And it's almost guaranteed that the Supersonics are coming back, if that's the case. So, all of that is moving around, not just in the NHL, but also in the NBA. Major League Baseball, obviously, is having their own arena issues with not just the Oakland Athletics. I guess they're now just called the Athletics. First time I've ever heard of a sports team not including the city name in the team name. but whatever. But also the Tampa Bay Rays are also going through a lot of issues as far as stadiums are concerned. I mean, Major League Soccer seems to have settled down a little bit, and expansion is kind of tempered off just a little bit, probably because they realize this insane growth has to stop at some point, and at some point there's probably going to be a bubble, and once the bubble pops, teams start losing money. And that's never good for any business, to lose money. Whatever happens with the Coyotes, whatever happens with Arizona, whatever happens with Salt Lake City, all I hope for are three things. I'm being facetious with the third one, but I'll get to that one later. The first thing I hope for is that Ryan Smith knows what the hell he's doing. Because it doesn't seem to me, just knowing my history as a Jazz fan, knowing my history and my dedication to that team, I don't know if Ryan Smith knows entirely what he's doing. Between the marketing department and Danny Ainge, he seems to be making some very questionable decisions. But that's just my opinion. So I hope Ryan Smith knows what he's doing with this new Arizona, with this new version of the Coyotes. Second thing I hope for is I hope Arizona lands on their feet. I hope they end up getting another franchise sooner than later. I don't want them sitting around 20 years after the fact wondering if they're going to get an expansion franchise. It needs to happen sooner than later. And I would like to see it happen within the next 5 years. But I also understand that a part of that is contingent on the fact that Arizona needs to have a new arena, or at least plans for a new arena, set in place ahead of time. And the third thing, the one that I'm saying that I'm being facetious about, can we just change that fucking logo? I will give Ryan Smith credit where it's due. He's simplistic. He likes simple. He likes plain Jane, I guess you could say. That Arizona Coyotes logo is something else. It is definitely not simple. It is definitely not minimalistic. I would like to see them change it soon. Sooner than later, preferably. Yeah. Now, does this mean that I personally will be, jumping ship over to the Coyotes just because I'm 50 minutes away from where they're going to be playing? No. I'm still deciding on if I want to be a fan of the Seattle Kraken or the Vegas Golden Knights. Still kind of on the fence on that. But no, just because they're playing in Utah does not mean I am going to suddenly become a Coyotes fan. That's just not going to happen. So, have fun with that. That's all the time I have for today on Sports Central, part of the Closing Tag Network. If you are interested in leaving the donation, the donations are very welcome. You can go to theclosingtag.com and click on the donate button. You will see it in the upper right corner next to the hamburger menu. Definitely knock yourself out. Donate as little or as much as you want. You can donate $0, and I'd be okay, as long as you're listening. If you are listening to this on Spotify, reviews are open and reviews are awesome. If you are watching this on Facebook, like, share, comment. If you are watching this on YouTube, like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications. That way, every time that I drop a new one of these videos, you are notified. And I want to thank everyone for listening, for downloading, for watching, for donating, for doing everything you can to help move this train along. Your efforts are not going unnoticed. So thank you. And until the next time that I grace you with my presence, remember to include your closing tags. P.S. No, I am not going to say let's go Coyotes. Sorry. This has been a Galactic Digital Studios production.